Good evening and welcome back to the it wasn't a continuation of the meeting. Is it technically a continuation? Yes, we're in the 2026 March 23rd public hearing meeting of council. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. On the roll, Councillor Atkinson. Councillor Chabot.
Present.
Councillor Clark.
Present.
Councillor Dollywall.
Here.
Councillor Jameson.
Present.
Councillor Johnston.
Here.
Councillor Kelly.
Present.
Councillor McLean. Here. Councillor Pantazopoulos.
Here.
Councillor Schmidt.
Here.
Councillor Tyers. Here. Councillor Ward.
Here.
Councillor Wyness. Here. Councillor Ewell.
Here.
And Mayor Farkas.
I am here.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we are in our public hearing on this item. I'm going to call for us to fill up various panels of people until we have 5 total names. Is there anyone who is on the line or with us in person that was on any of the panels from 1 through 30? Great, come on up. So we have one person there. Anyone who is on panels 31 through 35? Anyone on panel 36? 37? Or 38? How about 39? All right, so we will now move to panel 40. Do we have Philip Hancock with us? Alan Turnbull. Alan, come on up. You'll be our second panelist. Jaden Jacobson. Nicole Tabo.
Yep, here.
Thanks. I butchered that, didn't it? Was it Tabit?
Talbot.
Tabit. Thank you so much, Nicole. It's good to hear from you. You'll be our third panelist. Do we have Harvey Birnbaum? Moving now to panel 41, do we have Christy Chan with us? Andrea Walter?
Hi, this is Christy Chan. I'm here.
Thank you, Christy. Please stand by. You'll be our fourth panelist. Do we have Andrea Walter with us? Mike Borcrystal? Thank you, Mike. Come on down. All right, so those will be our panelists. We have one person in the chamber. I don't have their name yet, and then it'll be Alan, Nicole, Christy, then Mike. Please approach. You'll be our first person up. Please just identify yourself and let us know which panel you're on.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Cordell DeRosa. I was on panel 23.
Great, it's good to see you. Yeah, please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
All right. Good day, Mayor and Council. My name is Cordell, and I am a lifelong Calgarian currently living in Ward 13. I stood before Council in 2024 arguing for the implementation of blanket zoning, and I stand in front of you today urging you to reject the repeal of blanket zoning. I previously argued that I, as a paramedic, have witnessed how the housing crisis exacerbates health problems and causes undue stress on our healthcare system. This is not the focus of my speech today, but I would be willing to talk further if there were any questions afterwards. I know many of you ran on a platform to repeal the blanket zoning. I also know that many of you ran on a platform to maintain infrastructure and services while keeping taxes low. Our infrastructure is crumbling, and it is in desperate need of significant repairs. According to a recent report, the city is looking at nearly $50 billion in upcoming infrastructure expenses over the next 10 years. Taking a look at this year's capital budget and the operational budget for infrastructure adds up to $3.8 billion. Repeat over 10 years and we come up $11 billion short. Or in other words, we would need to increase those budgets by 30%. Calgary needs more money, and it needs to be more efficient with its money. Blanket zoning does both of those things. It increases Calgary's total tax base while ensuring that each dollar we spend on roads and water lines are more efficient. On top of that, repealing blanket zoning puts nearly $1 billion of funding at risk. While most people who have added their voices to this conversation of blanket zoning are in favor of repealing it, I would like to put out there that the majority of people that I have talked to and am aware of are apathetic to repealing or keeping blanket zoning in place. Their primary focus is to keep taxes low, maintain good infrastructure, maintain good services, and keep general affordability. Removing blanket zoning makes that much more difficult. It makes a complex problem even harder. This is why I urge you guys to vote to keep blanket zoning. And failing that, I urge you to accept the amendments and keep the amended version of blanket zoning. Thank you very much, Mayor and Council.
Thank you so much for being with us. Please don't go far. We'll hear next from Ellen, please.
You can tell I'm not an engineer. I had to ask whether I could adjust the... It just moved.
It just works.
My name is Alan Turnbull, a resident of Meadowlark Park. I strongly support the complete repeal of blanket upzoning without amendment. Since blanket upzoning was approved, residents of my community have lived the zoning equivalent of a random hands-off trial run. The preliminary results of that decision are now in. I can tell you they are not pretty. Unfortunately, sincere concerns that were dismissed as groundless fear in 2024 have become manifest in Meadowlark Park. And I know that you have heard and anticipate that you will hear likewise for similar communities throughout Calgary. How did we get to this point? Everybody asked that question. It's a simple answer. After the longest public hearing in the history of the City of Calgary, and despite overwhelming opposition to blanket upzoning, Council at that time saw fit to approve citywide upzoning nonetheless. We heard from City administration in 2024 that we needed blanket upzoning because one size doesn't fit all. Yet that's exactly what we got with blanket upzoning. A one-size-fits-all approach administered by developers and other unelected personnel, where every lot is treated the same regardless of the nature and character of the community. The public had been repeatedly assured by City administration that the broad spectrum of building forms and densities under blanket upzoning should not be taken to mean that anything goes regardless of the nature and character of an established community. City administration had repeatedly stated that it's important to ensure that future development, and I quote, integrates well into the community and with its surroundings, close quote. Unfortunately, that has not been our community's experience. By way of one example amongst several, an application that sought approval of 8 dwelling units with potential for backyard suites in the future on a lot that is currently a single-family home is completely out of context with the nature and character of Meadowlark Park. Unfortunately, the proposed development was approved, even though it utterly fails to ensure that it, quote, integrates well into the community and with its surroundings, close quote, and really feels like anything goes. Sadly, at the development permit stage, we were effectively told that there's nothing we can do about it under blanket upzoning. In conclusion, blanket upzoning implements a chaotic and random one-size-fits-all approach that effectively contracts out to developers and other unelected and unaccountable personnel the power to fundamentally remake our communities, one lot at a time, without any meaningful input from those directly impacted. Quite the opposite of planning, as I understand the ordinary meaning of that term, and I submit to you more like an abrogation of responsibility. Preservation of the nature and character of our established communities should be more than an empty platitude that relegates residents to the role of helpless spectators with a front row seat as vibrant communities are randomly undermined one lot at a time without any meaningful accountability to the public. None of this is fair and equitable by any reasonable measure, fairness and equity. Blanket upzoning deprives Calgarians of any confidence whatsoever that the nature and character of our communities will be respected. It undermines our communities. And most importantly, it undermines crucial public trust in our elected representatives. That, as predicted in 2024, is now boomeranged back on council. The importance that Calgarians place upon the right to have their voice heard before council cannot be overstated, as evidenced by the record number of participants before council in 2024. We need our voice before council to be heard today and restored in full going forward. I respectfully request that council repeal blanket upzoning without amendment and restore to Calgarians their right to a meaningful democratic voice before their elected representatives on council. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll go now to Nicole on the line, please.
So I pre-recorded mine to keep it in time. So if they can just start the presentation.
Sounds good. Just to verify, was this a video or audio that was sent into the clerk's office, Nicole?
Yeah, it was a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, we have it up on our screen now. Is there audio alongside it?
There is. All they have to do is just start the slideshow.
Okay, I believe we see the slideshow, but we're going to get the audio sorted.
Okay, you know what? It's okay. If you want to just start my clock, I'll just wing it. Basically, I just wanted to put what this process looks like to regular residents. Myself and most of the people that I've spoken to really don't have a problem with densification. In fact, most of us truly believe that we need it. We just think that the process by which this has occurred has been very problematic. I can only speak to our circumstances, but the development beside us has been horrendous. We've had issues with the property lines. We've had issues with our home being flooded. We've had their contractors installing equipment over top of our fence. We've had our parking areas blocked. When they're developing, the entire street is blocked with traffic and vehicles, parked the wrong way, driving fast, big vehicles down our roads. We have young children. Prior to this rezoning, we had a very diverse neighborhood. We had people with disabilities. We had people of diverse economic and social backgrounds. And quite honestly, that has almost completely gone. We have almost no rentals that are actually affordable for anybody. The only one we have that I could find on our block right now is $1,700 a month for a basement suite, whereas the family that used to live next to us rented that house for far less and had an entire home. They so badly wanted to buy that home, but it was instead sold to a developer who could offer a much faster turnaround than the family that was renting it. So when people talk about affordability and diversity, this is not what blanket rezoning has done for our community. I can only speak anecdotally to our circumstances, but a community or a block that was once very diverse in so many different types of people has now just become wealthy people who can afford a $1.1 million duplex. And while that's not in itself necessarily wrong, it's not creating the diversity that we once had, and I quite miss that, as do most of my neighbors. This process has, the LAPs and the blanket rezoning really need to be looked at because we need the density, but it has to fit for everybody. We are going to have no bungalows left in our neighborhoods. And so when 30 years from now, are we all going to come back to this same process when everybody's complaining because there's too many stairs in all of the homes that we're building now? We need to just have structure as to what is being built where so that we do have diverse choices for everybody, so that they do have choice in what they want to live in. And then it's not just duplexes and 4x4s and those that are populating our neighborhoods and pushing out the existing residents. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Of course, thank you. And it appears that the presentation was converted to a PDF format on our end, so the audio was lost alongside, but I'll ask our clerk's team if perhaps that original version can be sent out and distributed to council members for a different time. It just outlines the issues that we've had with this process. I just wanted to illustrate for people that it's not just things on paper, right? This affects people in real life and not just rich people in single-family homes, because we are not that. Makes sense. Thank you so much. We'll ask Christy to jump in now. And then after Christy is Mike.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Christy Chan, and I've been a Calgarian for over 45 years, living in Forest Lawn, Marlborough, and now Bridgeland. Like many new Canadian families, my family of 6 started out in basement suites and row houses for several years before being able to move towards greater stability. On my own, I've lived in a condo, a 1930s bungalow, and now a 100-year-old character home. So when I speak today, I'm not speaking in theory. I have lived the housing ladder many Calgarians are climbing, so I understand why different forms of housing exist and are necessary. While I value my current community's character, I do not support a full repeal of blanket rezoning. Instead, I'm asking Council to pursue thoughtful amendments through further consultation, especially with affected homeowners. Would it be impossible to ask the approximate 306,000 affected homeowners what they want, like a mini plebiscite? Returning to the same old model is simply not acceptable. It ignores why this conversation began. The previous land use process was not just a hurdle, it was a major financial and emotional burden for ordinary homeowners like me. If I want to house aging parents, support adult children, or create income later in life to stay in my community, I shouldn't have to face a litany of bureaucracy, battle my neighbors, and spend countless hours and a small fortune to be able to do so. Therefore, I support a redefined RCG baseline in my community that allows for 3 to 4 dwellings on one parcel, such as a primary residence with permitted allowances for both basement and garage suite, and semi-attached infills with basement suites. In fact, the 3-unit rule should remain as a baseline for most family parcels. Moderate density increases like semi-detached homes with suites are reasonable and already exist everywhere in the inner city. But large-scale jumps like 8 to 16 units sandwiched between 2 low-density parcels are typically not as welcome. We can make this policy work with practical improvements, and particularly around parking and waste management, which are consistent and valid concerns for those seeking the repeal. Instead of multiple scattered collection bins in alleyways, there can be a requirement for the incorporation of larger communal bins on the lot. Larger row house developments can also be restricted through parking and setback requirements. We can make it make sense. Bringing the old model back will create immense backlog, discourage development, and strain city resources unnecessarily. Going back doesn't restore order. It restores barriers. We should manage density carefully, not revert to the outdated practices before the 2024 change. That would be falling backwards, not stepping onward, as our city motto suggests. A full repeal would also create a serious fairness issue across the city. Thousands of properties would revert to older zoning, removing opportunities that some homeowners have already benefited from. In fact, my immediate neighbor is currently building an infill with both a basement and garage suite. Others nearby have also done the same. I've included pictures in my email submission, all without the discretionary use hurdles I faced in 2013 trying to build a garage suite while already being zoned RC2 due to the discretionary use clause. At that time, I had to provide a shadow report, interior and exterior plans, streetscape drawings, and then convince my case in front of an appeal board with multiple opposing neighbors, costing me roughly $20,000. Although it was ultimately approved, the process was so overwhelming I didn't build. So here's my question. Why do some homeowners get opportunities while others get obstacles? That's not planning, that's a lottery. If you repeal this policy completely, you're bringing inequity onto city blocks. An RCG baseline with 3 to 4 units is a balanced approach that I believe many Calgarians and even most speakers supporting the repeal reported they could live with. Rushing to repeal without incorporating suggestions for compromise from speakers ignores the time and thoughtful input many Calgarians have provided to explore this matter. Taking time now to clarify and refine policy will save everyone time and avoid conflict later. Some reasonable compromises for targeted growth can include lot size base density. 50 feet wide lots can easily accommodate 4 units, 40-foot ones 3, and under 30 2. Consideration for transit proximity can introduce gradual density increases closer to trains. Generous height and lot coverage allowances in the back of a parcel would encourage efficient use of space while preserving front streetscape. If council chooses to act, please do so carefully, not for political expediency or favor, but for the
Thank you.
long-term success of our
Unfortunately, you're
growing
just
city.
at time, but I would like you to, if you don't mind, just stay on the line in case there may be follow-ups from council members.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll wrap up this panel with Mike, please.
Yeah, right height. How about that? Hello, Mayor Farkas, members of council, and members of administration. My name is Mike Borchrystal, and I am CEO and lead designer of Tricor Design Group, which I started in 1985. Born and bred Calgarian who designed my first home in 1976, and this June will mark 50 years of designing homes for Calgarians. And that tally has just reached 24,000 homes. Our firm is consistently in the top 5 for building permits and development permit applications. I have been in front of many councils and many mayors before, and some of you on council today have seen me before. Over my career, I have sat on 4 LAPs that you can ask me about, was involved in the last 2 bylaws and some of the writing, have sat on many committees, city committees, including DAC and DPAC. I am on the board of directors of the Calgary Inner City Builders Association, and my comments today are not a reflection or position of that board, but my personal opinion based on my experience. As mentioned in panel 6, I'm the one that has been to SDAB 49 times since the blanket rezoning, and while quite successful, feel free to ask me about SDB and the challenges that we face at that board, and how many of those visits involved permitted uses. And my golf game is almost as good as Councillor Ward. I know I'm going to get slapped for that. Back in 2004, there were 4 of us, 3 from industry and 1 from city administration that wrote and delivered RCG to council in September of 2014. So yeah, I'm the guy that started it. Since then, I have sat on all the RCG refinements and amendments. RCG was first conceived because we had no district between R2 and MCG. And the differences between R and M are significantly different. This gave Calgary another housing form in the void of the bylaw that fit more in the residential realm than in the higher density of M form. I can say I'm fairly knowledgeable on the RCG district, but feel free to ask the original intent of RCG and how I have seen RCG evolve. For me to try and cram 50 years of experience into 5 minutes is pretty much impossible with all that I have done in this city. So while I touch on several points before I run out of time, perhaps you may have questions for me at the end. I am here primarily to speak to this motion about rezoning and the repeal, and I do not envy your position one bit, and it's a huge decision for you. Now, while the belief that most Calgarians were opposed to the blanket rezoning when it first came out, and some of your campaigns were based on repeal, I do not believe that this is entirely true. Mr. Walcott and others came with statistics about that. I sat through all 16 days of the previous hearings, and from my notes, it was clear that 90% of the opposition came from people in communities like Mount Royal, Lake Bonavista, Willow Park, Canyon Meadows, Rosedale, Parkdale, Meadowlark, primarily R1 neighborhoods. Now, I understand that when they did the rezoning, administration said that about 68% of the lots that got rezoned were R1 or RC1. Perhaps they can confirm that. Percentages can be skewed any way you want to make your argument plausible. So while 7,000 people came out or wrote about the blanket rezoning that were opposed, I can skew it slightly different. There were 7,000 people that spoke against it, but there's 300,000 homeowners. So when I skew those numbers, only 3% of the homeowners in the population came out and spoke against it. So I don't put a lot of stock in skewed numbers if it's not a proper poll. Now, I got this letter from council delivered to my home about rezoning and where to read all about it. Not sure how much that costs the taxpayers, but if you want to do what's outlined in this, so far in this motion and with all the amendments that have been floating around out there, the majority of them simply do not work, and the general population doesn't fully understand the impact they may or may not have. It may be good to start, but it's still flawed. The City of Calgary and previous councils have a bad habit of fixing bad and broken policy with more policy and bylaws that are also flawed. If you continue down this path, I believe you are about to do the same thing. You are about to reverse a bad decision of the blanket rezoning and make it much worse. Your plan is to repeal all the lots back to R1 and R2, and once there are no more lots that are RCG, then you want to tweak RCG? Well, I've reached about year 35 and I just ran out of time, so thank you very much.
Thank you for being on time, and I'm going to allow it. I don't think anybody's golf game is as good as Councillor Ward's, but over to you, Councillor Ward, to jump in, please, for this panel.
We'll get to that. If I can have, sorry, it was Miss Talbot. Are you still on the line?
Yeah, I am.
Yes. In your presentation, I think we saw at the end there that you've experienced some disruptions to your own property due to the development that's happening next to you. Is that correct?
It is, yes.
Right. So it looked like there was some damage to, I believe it was a fence and some trees. Is that right?
So we've had damage to the shrubs in the front, a tree they've sheared off all of the roots. There is fencing damage, yes.
Okay.
There is an issue with that because we aren't actually sure who the fence belongs to because there's still a property line dispute that I can't get any answers from the developer in writing. So I can't really tell if it's my fence problem or not, to be honest.
So I guess my quick question is, so that there's obviously damages, and have you been compensated in any way?
No. When I sent a request to them to address it, I was told that I would not be getting a response unless I wanted to come over and have a conversation.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I just...
Which
go
in
ahead.
years past, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, in years past, you know, if you had a new neighbor and there was a dispute about the fence, you would discuss it, and if you disagreed, you'd put it more on your side or they'd put it more on their side. But the problem is that there's not enough room for them to put it on their side. So,
Right. Okay, yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's difficult to know.
Yeah, it's interesting because
uncertainty.
I've heard this with a few different developments. There's some on Elbow Drive that I know of for sure that have had problems with this, and you know, I'm guessing, you know, not to judge, but perhaps you're one of those 1 in 2 Canadians that is struggling to, you know, pay their bills every month. That's most of us, and you know, to go the legal route is just not something that's within reality for most people that are going through this. So I sympathize for you, and I just wanted to understand kind of what was going on there. So thank you for that. I appreciate it very much.
Okay.
Mr. Boercrystal, if you could, please. How many hole-in-ones do you have, Mr.
11.
Boercrystal? Yeah, that's nice. 11.
What's your handicap, sir?
Lower than yours.
I don't think you're allowed to ask questions.
That's a good point. Thank you. You made it was a slight mention about RCG and how you didn't think it was quite right. Could you expand on that, or like, do you think RCG is working, or do you want to see it changed?
RCG is working. Through the chair, Councillor Ward. RCG is working for the most part, especially on corner lots. Where it's not working is mid-block, and the number of times that we've been to SDAB and all the things that I've learned from SDAB, and I've got quite a few notes on that if you wish, that's where it's not working the most.
Why is that?
Well, if I may.
If we can do the abbreviated version.
Yeah, I'll give you the abbreviated version. Let me just start here where I had this for SDAB. I had it sort of broken out here, but I mean, basically at SDAB, the arguments that we hear the most are community engagement, parking, density, and then they sometimes get into shadowing, garbage, and shadow and garbaging, and privacy, and lot size. So the challenge, like the community engagement part that we've heard a lot from people. The problem that we have with this, and it relates to SDAB, you have a home, it's a single-family bungalow in an R1 neighborhood, and somebody's going to put something next door to you that you don't agree with. Let's say it's a 4 and 4, 6 and 6, whatever it is. We put it in for an application. Planner sends it out to neighbors and community for feedback. Neighbors can send in emails and letters, and they do. They send them into the file manager with letters and emails. We're not allowed to see that as a developer, as a builder, as a designer. We're not allowed to see any of that because there's a privacy issue. So in our DTR, when we get our first DTR back, and that's what they call a detailed team review for those that don't know, when we put in an application and they come back with the first set of comments, it's called a DTR. They may hint about some of the comments that the community has, but they're not allowed to say anything specifically. So then the community, they think the only thing they have to do is appeal it, so they appeal it. And guess what? The SDAB board puts out a report before our hearing, and it has every single email and every single letter that was sent into those. Now, isn't that backwards?
Yeah, very.
So it's not the fault of the planner, it's not the fault of the developer designer, and it's not the fault of the community, because they're all trying. It's the process.
Okay.
And that's what we need to fix for community engagement, is that part of the process. Now, legal counsel will say that there's a Privacy Act for that. And how you get around that and how you manipulate that so that we have more community engagement, I think that's part of what you have to fix.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps it's, you know, blacking out names and addresses and identifying information. I'm not a legal expert, but perhaps that's
exactly what they do on the SDAB report. So the question is as we're going through the process of developing these things and working with the planner, why can't we see that? Why can't we get better feedback? So then I also heard from several people that they reach out for community engagement. I can tell you our firm gets at least 20 to 30 invites a year, and we go to every single one of them. And now we've stopped doing it, and now we're doing it virtually. Because the last two, we had one up in Montgomery. One of my staff got verbally and racially attacked. Then we had another one in another district, and I won't tell you which one. We had to be escorted out by police.
Jesus.
So we stopped doing personal engagement with communities for our own safety. So now we do it virtually. And then we heard one comment, well, they're doing it virtually just so that they can say that we did it. Well, no, we do it because we'd like to hear the feedback, and if we can make changes, we'll try. As designers and developers, we have a set of rules. There are a set of bylaws, there's LAPs, and then there's the MGA and the Municipal Development Plan. One of the reasons why we're so successful at SDAB is because we follow all the rules. We follow absolutely all the rules, no relaxations, and the SDAB board has a real hard time overturning something that meets all the rules.
As they should.
And as they should.
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem that we hear in terms of engagement. The other biggest one we hear is parking. And I know Councillor Chabot will love this. I think when you're counting for parking, I think mid-block should have 1 stall per unit or suite. They should be counted in the calculation. It shouldn't be half of a stall for the upper units and forget about the basement suites or the backyard suites. That's where mid-block gets into trouble. It works on corners because we generally have 2 sides to park, and it works on corners, so I wouldn't touch corners. But mid-block, absolutely, go down to 1 stall. The other thing that we hear was parking and density. So if you change the density, now this is going to be a real weird one, change the density to 100 units per hectare. Now I know the bylaws said you're going to go down to, but what you do is at 100 units per hectare, and if you count every suite and every unit, a 50 by 120 lot or a 50 by 110 lot, the maximum units that you can have on there is 5. And you can accommodate 1 stall per unit on a 50-foot lot. So that would take care of parking and density, and it would minimize it huge.
Beautiful.
We hear massing. To go down to 10 meters from 11 meters on mid-block, perfect. To go to 55% coverage on mid-block, perfect.
Okay.
Garbage. Now, here's the biggest misnomer about garbage. Waste and recycling, for many years on these higher density projects, they only require 9 bins. And it's private pickup. It's usually 2 to 3 times a week, and there's never more than 3 bins in the alley at one time. So these people that say that they're going to put a 7-plex with 7 down and they're going to have 28 bins beside them, that is incorrect. The city will not even approve that because it's way too many bins, and where are you going to put them on the site? It takes away from amenity space, green space, urban canopy, all that sort of stuff. Privacy, this is an interesting one. I hear a lot of people saying, well, you know, all these big monstrosities are looking into my backyard. Well, if you have a single-family home that's a 2-story onto a bungalow, you're looking into a backyard. If you have a semi-detached with windows at the back, you're looking into a backyard. If you have 4 by 4, you have 2 units at the back with windows at the back looking into the backyard. They never say anything about the single family, but they sure complain about the 4-plex, and it's the exact same situation. Lot size, I think, is another thing that you missed out on. I think that lot size, if you're going to go to 3 units or more, you should make lot widths a minimum of 45 feet at the front, and that eliminates cul-de-sacs. And I know that happens in Elbow Drive and a few others that I've seen recently, and that's not the place for them. So while what you've done in the amendments of the 8 things that you put on the amendments, 2 of them work, 6 of them do not, and you've missed quite a few of them based on what I've gone to SDAB on. Shadowing is another one. Now, don't beat me up for this. Well, shadowing and views are important while we're doing projects, and we do our best. But did you know under Alberta law, no one is entitled to views or sunlight? But people constantly bring that up. And the other thing is, there's only one place in the city of Calgary that actually allows, where you actually have to pay attention to sunlight and views. and that's on Crescent, on Briar Crescent on the escarpment, because they have restricted covenants. And I've heard that a lot too. And why is the city not paying attention to restricted covenants? They just ignore them, and I think that's wrong. I think that's totally wrong, and we've had many clients come to us with lots, and prior to purchasing them, the very first thing I say is check the title, check the restricted covenants. If you can't build more than one, don't buy the lot. So anyway, that's sort of that's maybe a long-winded answer to SDAB, but
that was not the short version, but that's okay. Thank you very much for all the info. Obviously, the experience is valuable, and I'm sure we'll chat in April.
Oh, yes.
All right, Councillor Kelly, please.
I want to go to Ms. Chan first. Ms.
Okay.
You can stay there. I will pivot to you in a minute, but I wanted to chat with Ms. Chan first. I really appreciated your presentation because, frankly, it lines up really closely with what my position was during the election. But you were kind of rushed there to get through it all. I recognize it's a little bit quick, so just because I align so well with what you're saying, I'm wondering if you wanted to take the opportunity to finish your last couple of thoughts there, if you could do it in like 30 seconds or so.
I will try. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I was going to say, if council chooses to act, please do so carefully, not for political expediency or favor, but for the long-term success of our city. You were voted in to manage our growing city, not just to repeal an imperfect policy for the loudest, most privileged voices. Blanket rezoning was not the only point of contention with the previous council. The historical introduction of residential parking fees and the costly arena deal that led to property tax increases also garnered much contempt. I support density and affordable, non-subsidized housing options, and to those who claim that the repeal reflects what Calgarians want, I am here today as a Calgarian to state that you do not speak for me, a homeowner of an affected property in an established neighborhood, nor do you speak for the overwhelming number of youth hopeful to see opportunity in our city. In the end, I want to remind everyone that we are building for their future too. Basement and garage suites provide the missing middle, allowing people to age in place and helping young people get started in desirable communities of their choice. So I urge council to not repeal progress, but improve upon it to move forward. So, and thank you once again for letting me speak.
How do you spell privileged?
Just make sure that everybody is on mute, especially the folks flipping through the dictionary.
Ms. Chen, what I appreciated about your presentation there is you appear to be take a rather balanced approach to this, recognizing that some parts of it are working, some parts are not working. I tend to agree with you that, like, I think that the distance to better is shorter from where we currently are than where we were in 2023. But I'm just sort of curious if you have any advice for us. If we were to go ahead and repeal this, what do you think should happen next?
I think there should definitely be amendments that would come along with the repeal. I don't think it should be a repeal and then next. I think it should be a repeal if it should be repealed. If it is repealed, that it comes with these amendments. Because even from what I've heard from other speakers, there are so many valid reasons to continue on the path that we are already on, and there's been a lot of progress from this blanket rezoning. Though there are some things that I disagree with myself, but I think we should continue on a path that allows for more density, but in a balanced way. So I definitely agree with some of the amendments that allow for, a minimum number of units based on lot size, and yeah.
Thank you very much for.
But I also don't agree that there should be limits on like what you can build with the units, because I don't agree with the 65% returning to 55%, because it also introduces inequity, like I mentioned, for people who are planning to build now versus people who have already built and use the maximum lot coverage.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that perspective. I mean, there are a couple of changes to RCG that are proposed within this particular public hearing. There is potential for some other minor amendments, but I do also just want to point out that there are motions arising. There are things that we can do over the next year, and then there's also the Calgary plan and the zoning bylaw that'll be in front of us. So those are all opportunities where we hopefully as a council have some opportunities to address some of the things that you're bringing up there. So thank you. Mr. Borkrist. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Borkrystal, actually, but that's okay.
Borkrystal, thank you.
You haven't butchered it as much as many people do.
You had said in there that if we wanted to ask you about the original intent of RCG, we could do that. I would love to take you up on that opportunity.
So it was myself, Steve Barnicutt from Gravity Architecture, Paul Cameron from Birchwood Properties, he's now retired, and Stephen Pierce from City of Calgary. And Stephen probably knows bylaws better than anybody. And we were talking about different built forms. We were in a little committee, and then all of a sudden we said, we've got to come up with something that's between R2, which allowed 2 units, and MCG, which went up to 6, 8, 10, whatever. We needed something to do on an R2 lot where the original tent was to do 3 townhomes with 3 basement suites, 3 garages. That was the original tent. That's when it started. We pitched that to council, and council loved it. They adopted it, and within 6 months we revised it because it didn't work in the business model, because you have to go 1, 2, or 4. 3 just doesn't work. 5 will work. The reason why 5 works is because you get a lot, when you get to 5 units, and this is why the 100 units per hectare and counting everything, 5 units works for CMHC, and all kinds of different funding. 4 and 3 just doesn't work. So after the First Amendment, a company by the name of Round Square put a 4-plex on a corner lot because the zoning allowed it, density allowed it, everything else, and it morphed from there. And it's just continued to morph and continue to morph into different, then it morphed into a 4-plex, 4 and 4. It morphed into sometimes stacked, and then it morphed into the HGO, where we could have a semi in the front, courtyard, semi in the back. And so it has, over the years, it has evolved. And if you repeal this right now, you're actually taking us back to pre-2014. You're not going back to 2024. You're going right back where we have nothing between R2. And the reason why I say that is because now we have no RCG lots left because you're going to take it away. And so builders and developers are going to have to do an LOC and come in front of you. Now, there's been talk that, that usually took 6 to 8 months. It sat on a planning desk because planning was so slammed. It would sit there for 4 or 5 months. Then it would take a month to get to CPC, and then it would take another month to get in front of you. So there's 8 months, if this gets repealed right away, there's 8 months that you've lost for building in the city. Then once we do get the LOC, if we do get the LOC, and what are the odds coming in front of you in a council that just repealed RCG to come in front of you and ask for an R2 to go to an RCG? We don't know. Maybe many of you don't know either, but the developers and people with money aren't willing to take that risk. We have developers and stuff now sitting on millions of dollars, and they're going to Chestermere, they're going to Airdrie, they're going to Cochrane, because that's where they're going to allow density to go. So we've got to be careful of what we're doing here, for not just for today, and not for just those small people in the ridings that want repeal. You have to govern based on what's good for now, tomorrow, and the future of Calgary. Because as a role of council, I believe that's what your function is. So I would be in favor of splitting it. And I would, like Alex said just recently, and I liked what he said, you split it and say no to the repeal and fix RCG. My comments earlier were going to be, do a partial repeal. Give R1 back to the people. Anything that's a 1, give that back to the people. That's 75% of your lots. That's still a win. You still repealed. You can still go on your campaign promise that you repeal and get 75% back to the lots, because you're never going to police 100% of the people. But give R1 back to the people and leave RCG and the rest in place. Now you can tweak it for mid-block, and we can start building tomorrow, and we can keep doing the housing stock that Calgary needs. But if you repeal the whole thing right now, you're setting the industry back 6, 8 months, maybe a year. And the other thing that came from that is, do you realize that there's hundreds of people that work on each of these projects? Trades, suppliers. 30% of our workforce is going to be out of work, and they're in your ridings. What are you going to tell them when you put them out of work? And that's some of the consequences of this. So, you know, I know there's a motion before you, and it's very difficult to split it, and I know that it was bundled, and I'm not sure about the legalities around that, but if you can split it and say no to the repeal and fix RCG, and then bundle it all for what's coming, because I know what's coming on the H1, H2, H3. I've been involved in that, and I know what's coming. Bundle it all together and do it properly with engagement from communities, with engagement from industry. And the LEP came up a lot, so I'll expand on that later if you ask.
With engagement, that was my big takeaway there. I really appreciate the history lesson and a little bit of the prognostication there as well in terms of where we might be going. And I also appreciate that you appreciate how difficult it is for us to make a yes or no choice is all that's before us. But I will commit to you the same thing I committed to somebody on day one. I will be asking administration about how much we might be able to split this in terms of the vote, knowing that we won't be able to split it entirely because some of the things are really tightly connected together. But I've got probably about 6 or 7 days before I can ask that question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Chabot, please.
Mr. Borkristle, or can I say Mike? Sorry.
Mike will be fine, sir.
Thanks for being here and for providing your insight. So if I hear you right, you're supporting of going even beyond the recommendation in the motion arising, which says 60 units per hectare, and you're suggesting 50.
No, 100.
No. To be clear, we don't count secondary suites.
I am suggesting that you do.
Okay.
As part of the amendment.
I get what you're saying, but based on today's understanding, 75 units per hectare is actually 150 because we don't count secondary suites. So you're suggesting we reduce it down to 100, right?
Well,
from 150 to 100.
Yes.
Which is
it's a trap question. You got to do both. You got to do both. You can't do one and without the other, right? Like I said, you have to count everything and then go to 100. Or if you do it like you're proposing, it misses the fifth unit.
Yeah. Well, what's recommended in as you probably saw the motion arising is to go to 60 units per hectare, but that doesn't include the secondary suites. So that is in excess of what you're suggesting we go to.
It is, but it doesn't fix the parking.
Oh,
and your parking will dictate.
I agree with you. This is one issue that you don't have to convince me on.
Okay.
As you know.
Yeah, I know that.
Anyways, you mentioned something, and I have to ask you. You don't seem to be too keen on LAPs. Can you tell me why?
Well, the word engagement. To be quite honest with you, I sat on 4 of them, and we did a lot of work. I started with the North Hill Local Area Plan, and if you bear with me for 2 seconds, I want to show you something. I did this research, I brought 6 LAP excerpts, and the reason why I brought them is we sat in meetings with community, with industry, and with the City of Calgary on LAPs. I think it was suggested earlier that the LAPs be facilitated by a third party. And I wholeheartedly agree, because these LAPs were all facilitated, and I have to be careful with this because I work with administration every day. But it was associated with, or facilitated by administration. And it seemed to me to be a template. And what happened is when we sat in these meetings and all these notes were being taken, and everybody said, yes, we'll do this, yes, we'll do that, yes, we'll do this. When the finals came out, half the things the community and the industry said were not in here. And that's a problem. And there's some specific examples. If you go to all the LAPs and you read 2216, and you were on last council, so you know about this, and when Councillor Long tried to bring this to everybody's attention. I believe it's Heritage and Westbrook, and I think that's the only other one, that say that fourplexes can only go on corner lots. The other four don't say that. So the language on the basic zoning throughout the LAPs don't match. That's confusing to both industry, that's confusing. If I've got an LAP that goes to here and one that goes to here, and these people says only on corner lots, and right across the street, they're allowed to go mid-block. These people are upset, and they should be, because the language coming out in these LAPs don't match.
You're giving away my voting pattern, Crystal, sorry.
Then, in the LAPs, we did a really good job of identifying local connectors, neighborhood connectors, and major connectors. And we did a really good job of doing building scale around those connectors. So a major connector like 16th Avenue got high modified up to 26 stories, and the local connectors were down to 3-4 stories in most cases, sometimes mid. And industry and community said, okay, great, you've got these nodes, and on this side of the street, fine, and across the lane you went, boom, right down to the basics of neighborhood local. And neighborhood local, you can do 3 stories, and as per the land use bylaw, you can do 4 plus 4. They didn't do a buffer. They didn't take from the corridors, they didn't take the next set of houses and buffer them with a little higher density and then down so that the mid part of all the communities were local, where neighborhood local was identified, to keep them low density. That's where they made the mistake, in my opinion, okay? And so, while LAPs are very good, you have to get the language correct, and you have to be consistent throughout, and I think you have to add those zones of density. And if you had a facilitator that wasn't the City of Calgary, and no disrespect to the City of Calgary, the people that worked on these were fabulous, and they put thousands of hours in it. So that's not the part. It's part of the process and the template, and I think that's where, if you're going to revisit the LAPs, that's what you have to do.
And consistency. Okay, thanks. You said permitted uses also get appealed at SDAB.
So,
elaborate.
Of the 49 times that I've been to SDAB, tomorrow will be 50, 14 of those were permitted uses.
How?
Well, I think you heard earlier another comment that's saying that at SDAB, the public is held to a different, like builders and developers are held to a different standard than the public. And the public, and I'm not going to say that they do it deliberately, and I'm not going to say that they lie, but they bring up stuff that they are not familiar with, and they throw it against the wall. And SDAB has to look at it and say, all they have to do is say, I think there's a bylaw relaxation. And it goes to a judicial hearing. Well, actually, it goes to a procedural first. And then it would go to a full merit hearing. Now, Mr. Christian Lee, who now heads up SDAB, he brought it, and I'm not sure whether it was him or the chair, Mr. Bardsley, that brought it in, but they have now changed it slightly, that if it's a permitted use, they go to a procedural, and the other side has to prove that there's a relaxation. And if there is no relaxations, then the board will rule that they do not have jurisdiction and they'll throw it out. But that still takes about 2 months.
Better than 6.
It's better than 6, but if there's no bylaw relaxations and it's been identified by the Development Authority that there are no bylaw relaxations, and the public can say anything they want, it's a different standard.
So another question. Are all of my comments redacted? Sorry.
Most of them.
No, I don't think I made any comments that you would have had an issue with. Access, has that ever been an issue around some of those appeals? Ingress, egress from the sites?
On laneless lots, yeah.
Okay.
And
Sorry,
Are you talking about vehicular access or
internal-
pedestrian access?
Internal access to and through the site.
That's a real stickler. City of Calgary standards for sidewalks are 1.5, but the side yard requirements are 1.2. And there's been publications in Homas here and other places where you only need 1 meter. And so that comes up quite a bit. Well, there's several panel members that want 1.2 minimum, they want 1.5, and they start arguing about sidewalks on a building that has no relaxations is perfectly fine, and we get into arguments about sidewalks.
Sorry I brought it up.
You know, the other disappointing part about that is it cost the City of Calgary approximately $3,500 an appeal. They had about 200 appeals last year, and 92 was the most that they've ever had. That's $700,000 you have to fork out for appeals. Do you know what the appellant has to pay? $200. That's $40,000. That is a real shame.
And that's could be viewed as an impediment because it used to be less.
It used to be $50.
Yes, I remember. Sorry. One of the other amendments that's being proposed is lot coverage. What's your take on that? Have you looked at that?
Yes, I've looked at that, and again, I think if you leave corner lots alone and leave RCG alone on corner lots, I think mid-block needs to come down to 55%. And I also think the 10 meters will help with massing. I think if you change the parking and change the unit count and change the hectares, that's going to go a long way to solve parking problems, density problems, and massing problems.
Yeah, and when you say counting all the suites, so 55 is what's being proposed as an amendment. So you're okay with that on the mid-blocks, just not on the corner lots?
I'd actually have to go back and do the calculation because I did it a little backwards. So if you don't count all suites, if you just, I'd have to do what the calculation is for 55 to see if you could still get 5 units on the lot. And that's super important for financing because financing is a big part of inner city development.
By the CMHC too, right?
CMHC and others. A lot of banks are going that way now too.
Okay, I think you've covered pretty much every question I had for you. And you think one-to-one, counting all the units for parking, especially mid-block or all?
No, mid-block.
Just the mid-block?
Mid-block,
The corner
yeah.
ones because you got so much street parking? Is that why you're saying?
That's the reasoning, yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your years of insight.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go over to Councillor Kelly. In our procedure bylaw, we don't have points of order, but I'm going to lean on the section of the procedure bylaw that my responsibility as chair and to ensure that council knows what's being voted on, to acknowledge you. What's your point?
Yeah, point of procedure, I guess, is what I'd ask for. I just wanted to get some clarity.
It's not a point of order is technically when a member observes that a rule might have been broken.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the case here.
Okay, in this particular case, I just wanted to get some clarity in the questioning there. Councillor Chabot referred to, I believe it was something to the effect of, I don't know if you saw the motion arising. I just wanted to get some clarity on whether that was referring to something that's not currently in the corporate record or if that's actually a reference to the recommendation number 4, the textual amendments of the RCG.
I'll go back to Councillor Chabot to ensure that he's been adequately quoted.
Yeah, I was referring to proposed amendments, not actual amendments in the bylaw, if that's what you're asking.
I was just, sorry, through the chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to, if that was just, because you used the phrase motion arising, so I just wanted to see if that was something that was already in the recommendations or if that was referring to something else.
That's a good question. I'm just referring to what I read on a page where there's all these different amendments that are being proposed. And I don't know if it was part of the motions arising or if it's actually baked into the bylaw at the moment. I don't believe it's baked into the bylaw. I think the only things baked into the bylaw were the textual amendments that I proposed in the original notice of motion, which is to continue on with the what was approved post-implementation. So I don't believe the lot coverage was, nor do I believe that the amendment to the UPH was incorporated. That was subject to the motion arising, if that's what you're asking.
Specifically, I just wanted to get the clarity in terms of, I thought you were referring to the textual amendments that were proposed at committee by Councillor Wyness.
Yes.
Is that correct? Perfect.
Yes.
So that's recommendation number 4 then. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Chabot. Appreciate it. Through the chair.
thank you very much. We'll go over to Councillor Atkinson, please.
Hey, Mr. Borkristol. Just speaking about the original, which was a triplex, no suites, right? That's the big sort of change that we've seen in terms of unit count, right? That sort of, and especially when you're talking about CMHC select and the ability, like for the 5, really even, your 4 without suites doesn't meet that standard, right? It is the suites really that allow for the CMHC select to come on board. Am I reading that right?
Through the chair, yes, Councillor Atkinson, that's correct. The original 3+3, back at that time, that gave you 6.
Yeah. So you were planning with 3 up and 3
down.
and down below.
But the townhouses wound up being 14 and a half feet wide, and it was...
Because you're on a mid-block lot.
On a mid-block lot,
Okay.
and it became difficult, and that's when it morphed to corners.
Yeah.
And it used to be in this town that corner lots were hated, and now they're being celebrated. And you go to most European countries, and the corner lots are celebrated. That's where the pubs are. That's where all the excitement is on the corner lots. And so because you get units facing in both directions, you get lots of eyes on the street, it works really well on corners. Right. It just doesn't, in my professional opinion and everything that we see, it doesn't work mid-block the way it's set up now, but it could with some revisions.
Yeah.
The proper revisions.
Right. So, and it wasn't necessarily, it was the skinny, just functionally, it's too skinny. So it wasn't necessarily about like the number of units not making an affordable product.
It didn't work financially with what the cost of the lots were. A little bit of history is back when Honorable Nenshi was the mayor, and he stopped urban sprawl, and he went in and went up, and lots went from 160 to 250,000 within 3 weeks. Same kind of thing has been happening lately, and if you repeal it, watch those prices go crazy and watch rent go and everything else. So it's sort of a cumulative effect. And back then, to split the cost of a lot at, say, 250,000 into 3 units and then do the math and the building cost and everything else, the return was less than 6%. In any business model, you want 30%, and most builders and developers in this town work on less than a 12% margin. And if one thing goes wrong, it's either passed on to the end consumer or they're taking a bath.
Right. Yeah. And is part of that, like, we've been learning about these like extra costs. So like the difference of taking down a bungalow and turning it into another single family or a duplex, there are certain costs that are associated with RCG town home or row home style development that are not borne by folks who are redeveloping into another single family or semi.
And the rules are completely different for single and semi as opposed to doing a 4+4.
Right.
The rules change tremendously, not only in the bylaws, but in the building code, huge in the building code. And where a single family home, to go from a single family home to a 4-plex, just in building code issues, it's about $125,000. Difference in building costs.
Building costs alone. Yeah, and those are things that we wouldn't have at our disposal. Those are not levers that we have within our control. That's in the building code.
That's in the building code.
But then things like the sidewalk that you mentioned earlier, that was one that came up where that is a cost that is currently put on for RCG developments, townhome developments, I should say, versus if you take that same RCG lot and build a single family, you're not taking that cost on.
Well, not only the cost, you think about walking around the site and you're putting all that concrete on the site. And people complain about green space, and they complain about urban canopy, and we're replacing it with sidewalks 1.5 because that's what they think people need to walk around an internal lot. They think they need something 5 feet wide to walk on. That's a lot of concrete. That's a lot of cost, and it's taking away from amenity space. It's taken away from green space. It's taken away from urban canopy. So again, this is part of the process. These are part of the rules that you can't just throw 6 or 8 or 7 amendments in there. You need to sit down and talk with industry that are on the ground floor that do as much as we do.
Right.
and say, these are what we're running into, this is what we need to fix, and then community, for the most part, are on the same page.
Yeah, I hear you. I think we do need wider sidewalks because I think we need a better, but maybe we need to take it away from the cars instead of actually the green space on the side. But that's a conversation for another day. You mentioned pushing development outside the municipality. So one of the things that we've been talking about around things like the industrial strategy and things like this is we're losing tax base elsewhere, right, on the industrial side of things, and we're doing all kinds of incentive programs and things to try and bring some of this back into the inner city because it's really important. What are you seeing on the residential side? You mentioned pushing some of this, the builders and whatever, into these surrounding municipalities, and what are the risks involved with that potential sort of flight of these kinds of developers and builders?
It's a multifaceted question. Some I can answer, and some is a little bit beyond what I'm do every single day. What I can say is that when a developer buys a piece of property and he comes to us to develop it, his soft costs before he's even applied for a permit, or actually when he applies for the development permit, and his soft costs, say for a 4x4, $60,000, and he doesn't know whether it's going to get approved or not. We wait because of the process that's in place. Although the numbers will say, and administration will tell us, because I've been on many committees, administration will tell you that they're getting development permits out inside of 12 weeks. But we are still contending that while that's true for permitted uses and contextual applications, that's not the case on discretionary. We're finding that for those types of applications, 12 to 14 weeks is about correct. But for anything discretionary, we're lucky at 24 months. We're lucky. So you're looking at 24 months plus 2 months to develop it and get it in, do your community engagement wherever possible. You're 8 months. And I believe...
24 weeks, you were saying.
24 weeks.
Yeah, just to clarify, okay.
Then, once you've got the development permit, and if you get appealed, you're adding another 6 months. If you don't get appealed, now you're waiting for another month and a half to 2 months to go through the building permit process. So that's 10 months. Most builders can build this stuff in 8 months. So the paper house is taking longer than building the brick and mortar house. And I think you heard that from CISPA, and we have tons of data to back that up, and it has been sent to councillors before, and it has been brought up before. We need to reduce that time frame of 8 months on a discretionary. How do you do that? With the right amendments for mid-block, you could make it permitted. We already know it works on corner lots, so make corner lots permitted. The key to permitted is you must follow every single rule. The second that there's one relaxation, it becomes a discretionary application. You need engagement, you need public advertising, you need all that sort of stuff. So a permitted use, following all the rules with the right amendments, with community engagement and industry engagement on it, makes the most sense. Then you're going to get thoughtful and good development within the city.
And would you say that those soft costs, I'll call them, say with timeline, are more important to the overall affordability of the end result than, say, the hard costs like the sidewalk changes or those kinds of things? Like, is it worth focusing more of our time and attention on those process pieces, the permitted, like finding the path to buildable more quickly? Is that more of a, has better outcomes in terms of the end result than focusing in on maybe the hard costs like the sidewalk replacement?
It's twofold, but yes. And the reason why I say it's twofold is that we talked with administration, and we were trying to push for a 6-week, and we know that doesn't happen, and 6 week won't happen. If we could get discretionary applications out in 12 weeks as opposed to 24 weeks, you think about $500 a day, and that's what it costs. the one I'm going to SDAB tomorrow, he has been waiting to try and, it's all approved, there's no relaxations. It's costing him $15,000 a month, waiting for the paper house to be done, $15,000 a month. If we can shave 3 months, 4 months off of that project, that's 60 grand that's not passed on to the end consumer. Because the builder's not going to eat that so that he makes $10,000 when he's putting $2 million at risk. He's passing it on. So where's the affordable housing? Part of it lies right here in City of Calgary Planning Department. And I'm sorry, I love the people in the Planning Department. I speak with them often, and they're tied. They're tied to a process that is so badly broken right now. We need to find a way to fix that. And that'll help development in the city.
But so you're talking about discretionary versus permitted.
Permitted is, when you get all the rules right for permitted and you follow the rules, it's a wonderful way to go. But we have very little of it. When we did the blanket rezoning, they took permitted use away.
Yes, yeah. So given we're having this conversation, just thinking sort of more broadly and outside the, like, is there something, you've been paying attention to all these hearings, you've been paying attention for a long time, you've seen the pushback, you're seeing what community is bringing in terms of SDAB applications. Do you think that there are changes to what is allowed within the RCG district on a permitted use basis that actually could have community buy-in and not have to go through a discretionary process, that we could actually bake into what RCG is and have that on a citywide basis?
Absolutely.
What is it?
Because I mentioned quite a bit of it earlier, especially the mid-block. We get very little pushback on corners. And the ones we get the pushback on the corners when we're doing more than 4 units, what they don't realize is it's already M. And a lot of times when we're doing an M, we're coming in front of council to get the M in the first place. So they're arguing the wrong argument there. But mid-block is where it really comes into play. And the 4+4 with 4 parking stalls, it's a nightmare for communities. Yeah. It's a nightmare for us to design, although we do have a formula that works. And I mean, you're always reducing something that makes the project not as good as it could be if we had different rules. And like I say, if we can get to a maximum of 5 units per mid-block and 1 parking stall per unit or suite, the number of community associations that I have talked to and people that I've talked to, they'll buy into that because it's a gentle upswing. But 4+4 is not gentle. And I'm in industry and I make my living doing this. So I'm actually cutting my throat a little bit on this. But that's my personal opinion, and based on how many we do and what we see and what we constantly have to talk to developers about, taking them off that ledge and saying, you're never going to get that passed, I'll draw it, I'll charge you 50 grand, and when they turn it down and I redraw it, I'll charge you another 50.
Right.
Or whatever it is. I don't make that kind of money, but anyway.
So one thing like that we're like with the current conversation is potentially going back to R1 being applied to 60% of parcels across, 60+% of units across the city. Which I understand that, say, a semi, like side by side with units underneath, is not 5, does not hit that CMHC requirement for, or CMHC select, right? Like that's.
No, you'd need a semi with basement suites and a backyard
suite. Backyard, yeah, to be able to make the 5.
That gets the 5, and on a 50-foot lot, with the way the bylaws are written, now that the amendments were changed with parking, and this is why the amendments are so important depending on which way you go.
Yeah.
Parking used to be, if you parked in a garage, if you had a garage, the total of a 20 by 20 garage, for example, on a 4-plex and stuff, it was 18.36 meters, so 19 meters. But if you didn't put a garage on, you had to leave 21 meters.
Right.
It made no sense. So that has been revised to 19 meters across the board, whether you're surface, whether you're carport, whether you're garage, and that reduced the amount of site that you had to cover, which helped for green space because you still had a maximum coverage for your building. Mm-hmm. So if you do it right, and you do the permitted use right, you get to those 5 units, a backyard suite, semi, or stacked, or 4x4 with no basement suites. In my conversations with another counselor, she had mentioned that she said, well, yeah, but then you'll build that and they'll come in and then they'll apply for the basement suites afterwards. If you do 4 without basement suites, they'll come and apply for it afterwards. My answer to that is no. The zoning doesn't allow that, so deny it, right? Okay. Just deny it right there. And for those of you that remember, I'm not sure how many remember Dale Hodges, Councillor Dale Hodges. You will remember the Dale Hodges rule for semi-detached? You couldn't have a door on the side that opened into a staircase to eliminate the opportunity of having a secondary suite. So designers can design so you don't have a door so that you can't have a secondary suite.
Right.
Those are easy things to do. Designers can work around that. Developers can work around that. So with the right kind of rules, permitted use for mid-block and for corners would be wonderful. We would start building a lot sooner and a lot more affordably.
Okay, thank you, thank you, yeah.
Sorry for the long-winded answer.
Thank you, Councillor McLean, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Stay up there, Mike. I'll try to be a little quicker because you've been there for about an hour.
That's all right, I expected it, actually.
And I appreciate it because you're bringing a lot of institutional knowledge. We get a lot of speakers, some like rezoning is going to be the end of the world, and someone is going to end their own world. There's somewhere in the middle here. I like what you're saying about maybe keeping some R1. You put a lot of really good context on the corner lots, the shading, parking. Yeah, we still need cars in some places. But what the question is, what I didn't quite understand what you said about the garbage bins. So if you said that because we've seen pictures and photos, and that's been an argument. So. And you can dispel that. So tell me again how if you have 8 units and how the bins aren't going to be all back or whatever.
Well, through the chair, Councillor McLean, nice to see you again. Through waste and recycling through the city of Calgary, I believe it came in a year and a half ago, where they changed how you did the recycling on multifamily units. We go to private, first of all, the bins have to be stored inside of a garage or in a screened area on the lot. That's number one. Okay. That's one of the requirements. That's not a requirement for single family or semi-detached, right? Yeah. And when you go and drive in areas that are single family and semi-detached, you see bins all over the place, right? These are the same people that generally complain about how many bins you get on a multifamily.
Yeah, that's why I want to get clarity, because if there's a solution or if it's already been addressed, yeah, that's fantastic. And so you're saying...
So Waste and Recycling said that for private pickup, you need 9 bins. So you need, I believe and Ahmed, when he comes and speaks later, he's my right-hand man over at Tricor. I believe it's 4 black, I think it's 4 black or 5 black and then 2 and 2, I think is how it is. Or it might be 3, 3 and 3, I'm not sure. But the private pickup happens, like when you've got your bins now, I think the black bin is picked up, every second week or something, and the recycling is maybe once every 10 days or something like that. With private pickup, it's picked up every 3 days. And at any point in time, they're not picking up all 9 bins. They'd be picking up just the black or just the blue. And part of the requirement for private pickup is they take the bins, put it in the alley, and private pickup puts them back.
So each unit, I just didn't know that each unit then has to have a place to have their 3 bins.
Yes. Well, no, each unit, it's 9 bins for 4 plus 4, 6 plus 6, whatever.
It's not 3 bins per household.
Yeah, and it's in a common screened area that you would go out your unit and put it in the common screened area.
Okay, that's good to take that off the table, because like I said, I think, like you said, keeping some R1s, the corner lots, the mid-blocks, this all makes sense. And I think Councillor Atkinson was going a lot of the same way where I wanted to go when you mentioned like that 8 months. We hear that all the time. You know, that paper house, how long it takes to get there. I think when we're talking cost, we're trying to get affordable, we want to get things built. That's a bigger problem than everything else that's before us. And so you've got some solutions, but nothing that you can articulate in 5 minutes. Or put it on paper for us. I mean, I've heard people doing a notice of motion. I think even Mayor Farkas once back in his previous campaign, 30 days approval, or it's a yes or it's a no or whatever. I mean, is that something that we look at?
Yes, I think it is. Part of the process is we submit something to the City of Calgary, and now everything's done online. Gone are the days when I'd stand at the counter and wait with a number. Although you can still do that, but it's not practical. So you do it online. If you manage to get everything uploaded online, and there's still a few problems with online, but it's not oversurmountable, and we do have people we can talk to get it uploaded. It usually takes anywhere between 3 to 6 days to get a number, to get it actually online, looked at, and get a number and get somebody assigned. Planners are overwhelmed. It goes to bylaw check. A bylaw check, when I see the report in the SDAB report of what the bylaw check goes through, it's a spreadsheet that the city is not allowed to share with the designers and developers.
You hear a lot, like it says, they put in their plans and then they come back and then they tweak it, goes back and forth, back and forth. I mean,
It goes back to bylaw again.
Yeah, I hear it goes back and forth, it bounces back, and it says, trees should be this height. I mean, so this I don't think we can actually do probably. What are your thoughts?
Why are the planners are all trained. They know how to do bylaw checks. If it's 1 or 2 items, why is it going back for a full bylaw check? Okay. To us in industry, and we talked about a tiered system where people that do constantly do good stuff go into a different queue. But as soon as it goes back to another bylaw check, the answer I got back more often than not is, well, we don't know what else you've changed. In other words, they haven't trusted that we haven't changed something else. So they go back for a whole bylaw check to change the whole thing all over again. And a lot of times they come back and they've got something completely different that they didn't catch the first time.
This would be a tough question, because I don't know if we can actually put that in.
I don't think
an amendment or a motion horizon, or that's something's got to probably be something. But I think that's where our crux is, because the other thing I wanted to bring up, because you mentioned we're talking timing, and when things come to council for approval. Because even like I say, the previous speaker, Alex McCall, suggested, I voted for things that are mid-block or different, because each one could be different.
Yep.
And I think you'd mentioned something about like how many days we were here last time, like 20 days.
So
16. So just go ahead. Sorry.
You do an LOC. So I'm going to do an LOC for a builder, and he wants to change the zoning. I have to do a plot plan, site plan, and I have to do a 1 or 2 page rationale, and I send it in. And it sits on a planner's desk for 4 months to get to CPC. And then we have to wait for CPC schedule to get onto there, and then we have to wait for the council schedule for a public hearing to get on there. Why does it sit on the planner's desk for 4 months? Lots of reasons. A lot of the planners are busy and they're doing full plan checks and everything else. Why they're not dedicating 4 or 5 people to just do land use, I'm not sure. They have to do some community engagement. They have to send it out to the public. They have to do some advertising, but that can all be done inside of 6 weeks. And then CPC, whether they approve it or not, let's say they recommend it, you still have the power to overturn it anyway. So why is it going to CPC?
CPC could disappear. I think this is the crux of it, because my point was, if we were, say 18 days, is that what say we spend 18 days last time and 12 this time, 30 days at 10, 12 hours, 300 hours maybe we're spending here debating this, and we can approve things sometimes in 5 an hour.
Yep.
I mean, that's my simple math is 1,000 to 1,500 properties or developments we could have approved just debating this. I mean, back and forth. So this is where we really need to, I think we need to focus, just accelerating the timelines more than anything else. So I'd really like to maybe pick your maybe offline how we do that.
Absolutely, love to. With any of the councillors, if they wish to pick my brain and use, all this lack of hair and white hair is well earned, I think, and I'd love to share what I've got left.
Okay. Well, then just final question, in your opinion then, if we accelerated all these timelines and we kept, say, the public hearing, we could come to council, because I really like the idea of us looking at doing our job and looking at each individual land use, not on a blanket thing. So blanket rezoning could be repealed, and we would get far better outcomes if we just accelerated the timelines, accelerated the processes, looked at each land use, and we could still approve all these different things, but we would accomplish more by maybe doing that rather than the way it is right now.
All but one thing. when you said we could still repeal, because by the time you put all those processes in place and try and get this down, there's
people
that,
out of work right now.
there's
That's
that lag.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm super concerned about that lag and what that will do for the industry and how much money that'll drive.
You know
away
the
from-
numbers? I think there's something like 9 have been completed, or there's 1,000 in the pipeline right now, or do we know?
Well,
You know?
you know, I think we have 7 or 8 in the queue that we just took a plan, put it on a lot, fired it in, so we got a DP number,
I think
and we're
there's a lot-
revising.
none of that happened.
That is a terrible way to do business, both on our side and your side, but it was the only thing we had left.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to take the
we're-
prerogative of chair to jump in here. For this panel, it's been for 5 individuals, approximately almost 2 hours at this point. So I just out of respect for especially the individuals in the gallery, I'm going to
I agree.
ask Councillor.
I'm the least offender of that one of everybody else. Just to say.
And I
But I'm
appreciate
good.
that. That's
good.
why.
But thanks
That's why I was
we have to pick this
loath
guy's brain.
to do so. So
Thanks.
I'm going to go over to GM Hamilton, who has a request to speak here.
Thank you, Mayor. And what I would suggest, Mayor, is that this recent line of questioning, while entertaining, and Mike, we've got lots of forums for you to have these discussions with administration, is not the purpose of why we're here today for the repeal.
I understand that.
Just really appreciate you being here. Council, colleagues, I know that we have a layout of panels here, but I'm going to take the prerogative of chair just to invite the remaining, I believe there's 6 individuals who are in the audience with us. And why don't we just invite all 6 of the people who are here physically present and been waiting all day? And we'll conclude those who are in the audience here with us, and then we'll resume our public hearing tomorrow. Does that sound good? Okay. All right, so at this point, if you are on the bridge on the telephone, you will not be called tonight. We will resume our public hearing tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. We're just going to finish from now to 9:30 p.m. with the individuals who are physically present here in the council chamber who've made their way down. So what I'll do is I'll just ask if for anyone who's here in person at the municipal building with us, just come down, please, to the lectern, and we'll assemble you as our final panel for the night. And again, thank you to the panelists who've assembled here.
Mayor Farkas and council, thank you for indulging me, and I know I went a little far.
Thank you, sir.
But thank you.
We appreciate you being here. All right, so again, please come and approach if you haven't had the opportunity to speak and you're here in the council chamber with us. Just by the looks of it, we only have 3 here in person who wish to speak. Okay, perfect, 4, awesome. Great, so please approach in the order that you're seated. Please introduce your name as well as which panel you're originally on.
Oh, wait. Sorry. Go ahead, don't worry. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we're all going the same place in the end.
Okay, so I'm honestly not even sure if I'm even supposed to be here because I wasn't actually signed up for this, but you said anybody who's in the audience to go ahead.
You've been waiting all day, you've earned it.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just here with one of my friends, and I was not prepared at all to speak right now.
Wait, what's your name?
It's Kevin Brereton. Just, I'm a bit of a policy wonk when it comes to a lot of housing stuff, and I really appreciate you guys all listening to everyone's feedback and concerns and stuff like that. So, in terms of the stuff that I've heard so far, I mean, I forget what his name was, but the guy that was basically here, he had a lot of really interesting stuff to say. But what am I trying to say? One thing that I really appreciate, that I've heard you guys so far, is guys just listening to all of the nuances and stuff around the situation, because it's very easy to campaign on something that's a very black and white, oh, well, you're either for this or you're against this, and there's no in between. But at least from what I've heard you guys saying is that you guys have been engaging with the in between, right? With all of the picky little details that goes into all of these, because the details is really what matters with a lot of this stuff, right? As previous guy said, 4 versus 5, getting that funding versus not for Team HE. that's what kills projects. That's what gets real affordability, right? So like, the entire proposal around is like, putting it back to how things were, right? With R1 and R2 exclusively, like, but that's, in my mind, it's easy. It's an easy campaign promise to make, and because it's easy for people to like relate to, though, right? But I think in reality, there was probably at least one or two mistakes that were made in the original time, right? Like, nobody has it perfect the first time, right? So just having the ability to go through all of the previous, find the things that were not correct the first time and finding ways to improve and iterate over that, I think that's really important. And I also think that it is important for people to, deliver on what you were, like campaign on, because a lot of people, they do, like, I personally am for, like, all the rezoning stuff, but a lot of people aren't, right? So, finding ways that, that we can deliver for those people too is also, I think, very important, because at the end of the day, everybody wants certainty, right? Like, everybody wants to be able to either, like, live in their home and then see that they can have a consistent neighborhood that they want, right? And developers, they also want certainty, right? But they want the certainty that they can be able to build what they need to be able to build, and for them to not, have like endless delays or people making endless appeals and having like, bad faith ways for just stalling out the process as long as physically possible, right? Which, I mean, like, as a guy who previously spoke said, there are many ways that can be improved upon, which, I mean, I'm no expert. I mean, clearly the last guy was. I'm no expert on that. But I'm just, I'm happy to see that everybody is engaging with all of those nuances. So, yeah, thank you very much. I have nothing else more really to say, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Appreciate you being here. I'll ask our next presenter to please approach. Please let us know your name and which original panel you're on.
Hi there, my name is Hannah Nesbitt, and I'm from panel 43. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and community members. As I stated, my name is Hannah, and I'm here today to speak in opposition to repealing the blanket rezoning. Now, I could spend my time today talking about how many people in Calgary are on the brink of homelessness, debunking some of the myths on the blanket rezoning bylaw, or emphasizing the need for all levels of government to address the housing crisis through evidence-based policies like zoning reforms, expanding non-market housing, and curbing the financialization of the housing market. But I'm sure all of you have already heard all these points. So instead, I want to take some time to talk about community and what community means to me. I currently live in an apartment downtown. When I look out my window, I see a high-rise building probably lived in by upper-income earners. I also see some row housing, a subsidized apartment building for seniors, and a few other rundown buildings that seem to be a mix of market and non-market housing for smaller families and single parents. And just beyond that, I see a homeless shelter. From my apartment, I can also see a small park. On a warm, sunny day in the summer, the lines that usually divide our lives begin to blur as everyone emerges to seek the sun. You'll see kids in mid-chase and readers lost in books while families turn the lawn into a patchwork of picnics. Alongside them, seniors trace the paths with their rhythmic daily strides, while neighbors without homes find respite on the benches, each person claiming their own quiet corner of the afternoon sun. Now, what makes this little park so amazing is its unconditional invitation. It's a place where someone lost in a novel sits beside someone lost in thought, and where those with homes and those without share the same sun-drenched benches. There are no requirements for entry other than simply showing up. In this shared space, our social titles fade away, and we become nothing more and nothing less than neighbors under the same tree. To me, this is what community actually looks like. I've realized over time that the value of my community isn't found in the availability of street parking for my family and friends when they come and visit me, or the temporary inconvenience of the endless, and I mean endless construction, currently surrounding my area. And I'm not worried about my neighborhood losing its character as it grows, because the character of my neighborhood isn't found in the height of the fence or the age of the architecture. It's alive in that park on a summer afternoon. It's in the people. While this park stands as a beautiful testament to what community can be, it also quietly underscores a much harsher truth. It invites us to reflect on the uneven realities that exist just beyond its green spaces. Some of us in the park are a family of 5 sharing a 2-bedroom apartment, making it work by prioritizing rent over food. Some of us are 75 years old, living alone in a rundown subsidized building, navigating the challenges that come with isolation. Some of us return home to high-rise condos with sweeping views, security, and comfort, while some of us in that park have been sleeping in shelters while we enter month 13 on the Calgary housing waitlist, slowly losing hope that one day we will be housed. Ultimately, every neighbor of mine shares the same basic need, a safe place to call home. And if we want that need to be met, not just for my neighbors, but for all Calgarians, we need policies that make it possible. Evidence-based policies like blanket rezoning work as a tool to make it easier to build a wider range of housing that reflects the reality of who we are as a community and makes it possible for the people at different stages of life and income levels to not just live here, but thrive as well. My support for blanket rezoning is rooted in more than just my hope for neighbors. It's rooted in my own experience in public policy. And trust me, I do not admire any of your positions right now. But I do remember now, early in my career, that I thought policymaking was a purely clinical process, that leaders simply looked at the most rigorous data and followed the evidence to its logical conclusion. I often imagine where we would be as a society if that truly was the case. But my time in the policy world has provided a different reality. I've seen far too often how the best data is sidelined by the best political move. I've watched as decisions were weighed not by their long-term impact on our community's well-being, but by the short-term calculus of the next election cycle, the optics of a headline, or the need to appease the loudest voices in the room rather than serve the broader public good. The current shortage of affordable housing is not the result of a single person, a single vote, or the specific actions of this administration or the one before. However, the future of affordable housing depends on the intentional, courageous, and evidence-based policy work of the leaders in this room today. I call on all of you to look beyond the next election cycle and the optics of a headline and instead focus on the next generation. I urge the Mayor and Council to show the political courage needed to prioritize adequate, affordable housing for all Calgarians by opposing the repeal of the blanket rezoning. Let's be a city that actually creates affordable housing instead of a city that just talks about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here with us. We'll ask our next speaker to please approach.
Hi, my name is, good day, Mayor, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Keith Drevitt, and I blame blanket rezoning on the crumbling infrastructure in older neighborhoods due to neglect on the city's part. I live in Ward 8 in the community of Mission and Cliff Bungalows, and found out firsthand it has sewer backup issues when my below ground level condo unit got flooded with sewer water. I don't know why the developers and the Housing Commission are bringing up blanket upzoning again. The people of Calgary have spoken that we want no more blanket rezoning and upzoning. I don't want row houses on my street nor in my community. Blanket rezoning is a communist plot to control people when it comes to expropriating properties and displacing people who currently live there. We, the people of Mission, take pride in our old heritage buildings and don't want them replaced with new houses. Therefore, I'm begging the mayor and council not to do this. Please don't give in to these greedy please don't give in to these greedy land developers. The Housing Commission and social justice warriors disguised as nonprofit housing organizations. I don't want illegal migrants in my neighborhood. The building I live in.
I'm just gonna jump in, and this is a forum where everyone in the public should feel able to provide their thoughts to council. But what I would ask just politely is, especially if it's other folks who may have been present here in the audience with us, please don't cast aspersions or try to speak to what their motives might be. This is not really the forum for that. I'd like us to stay as on task with the issue in front of us rather than describe others as greedy and whatnot. Like, I think we're all here in good faith. So if I could ask just politely, just kind of stick to the issue at hand rather than try to attack or denigrate other individuals.
Okay. I just want to see where I, okay. The condo building I'm in is an older building, a lot sturdier than the new homes. And so is a row of 100-year-old wooden two-story houses. It was sad to see a row of older homes flattened in place of cheaply built apartment rentals. These are the single family homes that got flattened that were built in the 1950s and 60s. And the rentals are rentals made of particle board on 58th Avenue across from Meadowlark Park. I, for one, don't want my building and property expropriated and forced to move into a cheaply built home. For as long as I live in Calgary, I want to stay in my neighborhood and in the place in the same place. Don't want to live anywhere else in the city. Calgary is growing way too fast, and urban growth dictates social problems. I'm asking for a moratorium on discouraging newcomers from moving here, scattering them about, and to move to the neighboring towns in the Calgary area. Instead, I don't want Calgary to be the size of Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal in population. So please repeal the blanket rezoning and no appeals.
Thank you very much for being here. We'll ask our fourth presenter to please approach.
Good evening, Mayor Farkas and members of council. My name is Ahmed Gouda, and I'm a director at Tricor Design Group. I think my colleague Mike Borkers will have presented our company. We have over 40 years of experience in housing developments and permitting process in Calgary and surrounding cities. And personally, I have doing this for 24 years, locally and internationally. We are the middle ground of the process. We are between communities, city planning departments, and developers, trying to navigate all the rules and challenges. Before joining Tricor, I practiced as an architect in Dubai during the early 2000s. Dubai is one of the world's leading examples of progressive urban planning and long-term city building. I witnessed firsthand how a city transforms from a vision into a global reality. The most vital lesson I learned there was the importance of momentum. I am not comparing cities. I am pointing out the importance of a good governance and vision to future. When regulation faced challenge, and they did a lot, the leadership didn't retreat or cancel progress. They refined the rules, modified bylaws, and kept moving forward. Understanding that smart, firm steps today prevents crisis for tomorrow. In my professional opinion, the proposed repeal of RCG zoning is a significant step backwards. It's clearly not moving forward effectively, returning us to the zoning system of 2014, that is 12 years back. This is a move that Calgarians will feel the impact of much sooner than expected. While RCG may not be perfect as currently written, the solution lies in modification, not repeal. We are facing undeniable facts. Our population is increasing. Our inner city lacks middle scale, affordable housing, and the housing crisis remains a daily reality. From what we are already observing in the industry, the uncertainty surrounding a potential repeal is having immediate impacts. Investment confidence is weakening, and some developers have begun already redirecting their capital to surrounding municipalities. At the same time, the anticipated reduction in housing supply due to the repeal is placing upward pressure on both houses prices for the townhomes and the rental rates. Perhaps most concerning is the erosion of the trust in the city planning framework. Once lost, this is difficult to rebuild. Based on our firm's experience, including representing record number of appeals last year alone, and engaging daily with developers, community associations, and the city, we have practical and achievable suggestions as a middle ground solution. These refinements address community concerns while ensuring Calgary remains a viable place to invest and build. Unfortunately, due to the timeline, I may not be able to mention these recommendations now, but I hope that I can be questioned about it later. We are not building merely for a political cycles or immediate pressure of today. We are building for a future where our children and grandchildren can afford to call Calgary home. While we recognize that there is no single approach will satisfy every stakeholder, the responsibility before Council is to prioritize the long-term vitality of the city over the desire of maintain a static status. Progress requires us to look beyond individual comfort zones towards the collective needs of a growing city. If I may offer one final reflection, many of the bold planning decisions made in cities like Dubai were initially met with resistance and rejections by the citizens and the residents. Today, they are the source of pride. I am confident that Calgary has the same opportunity today.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much.
For just a time. So we've concluded our in-person panel here. Last call, is there anyone in the chamber here with us who didn't speak, who wants to? We have a few more minutes here. I'd like to speak with, if by chance, maybe 2 or 3 people stayed on the line with us. If anyone is on the phone and hasn't had a chance to speak, could you just chime in with your name, please? All right, I think we've exhausted the people on the line and in person. Procedurally, we could close the public hearing, but I don't think for procedural fairness that that is a reasonable thing to do, given that I told people to hang up. So unless there's any objection, Council, I deem the public hearing still continue to be open, and we're going to come back here at 9:30 in the morning. Okay, seeing no objection, we're adjourned. See you tomorrow at 9:30. Or sorry, not adjourned, we are recessed. Yes. We are not done. We don't deserve to be done yet. All right. See you back at 9:30 in the morning.